Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Hourlings podcast project. My name is Martin Wilsey and I'm your host. Tonight, we're going with the topic of beta reads. Dave's going to lead the discussion. So take it away, Dave.
Okay. So in my day job, I'm an IT guy, and betas and alphas and things like that mean real things in the software realm. And I've kind of translated that into the book realm, the writing realm as well. So I have some pretty strong opinions about what makes a good beta read. First, however, I want to cover a topic of what types of reads are there. I've already mentioned alpha and beta. So for me, an alpha read is typically an early look at my story from somebody who's probably a structural expert and can give me feedback on the basic shape of the story. It's usually just a few select people. And it's usually when I think that there's something wrong with the story and I can't fix it myself. A beta read happens later on when I think the story is ready. And then there could be some other types of reads as well. So guys, you want to add some commentary here?
I think very few people know alpha reads. I know many people know beta reads. So maybe an alpha read can manifest in different ways and isn't called that. But I've not seen that term too often.
I mean, could I make a suggestion on alpha?
Go ahead.
That would alpha reads be something the equivalent of taking your book through a writing group and just
That's
having?
kind of what I was That's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe.
The alpha is typically the complete story, but you know it's got flaws. You know it's got problems. You can't figure out where they are yourself.
Yeah.
I had a 12,000, 13,000 page story that I knew just wasn't working. I gave it to a couple of my alpha readers, and I got some pretty brutal advice back. It caused me to cut 4,000 words out of the story and then add 1,500 back in. And it was a much better story that way. But when you know that something's wrong with your story and you need help fixing it.
Well, what do you say to people like me then who never does an alpha read and maybe combines the uses of alpha and beta read into one?
And that's definitely possible. Although I think that a beta read has a different purpose.
You think a beta read what? I'm sorry, you cut out for me.
I feel like a beta read typically has a different purpose. I send something for a beta read that it is ready for publication, right? And I want to see if other people actually think it's ready for publication. Now, you guys may have different perspectives on that.
Well, for me, I occasionally use alpha reads. That is usually when I'm having the same kind of structural or plot problems like Dave was mentioning. I'll have somebody read it, and it's usually in a pretty early stage, much rougher than I would typically allow somebody to have a look at it. But that's only if I'm having a really hard time, maybe with a specific section, or I'm doing something dramatic in it, like killing a major character or something, and I want to, check the fidelity on that to see how it really works before I waste the valuable time of the actual beta reads. Now, for me, I actually do stuff in a specific order. Once I get it to the point where it is what I believe is ready, I actually always make a deal with an editor to say, look, I want you to edit this, and
Two passes, essentially.
And it's a two-pass edit, really. She'll edit it, it'll go back, and then it goes out to my beta readers. They give me all their feedback, and I roll the feedback in with track changes on, and then the editor gets the last look at it, so that they're the last ones to touch it before it actually goes out the door.
Now, two-phase edit with an editor, but then I write fairly clean as it is. So my technique is similar.
You see, I've actually done beta reads prior to edit. The problem is I really suck, and I'd rather have my beta readers read it for plot and character and setting, rather than fixing my typos
Right.
that my editor would typically catch.
And that makes sense, I think.
Well, you have
Say
to
that
pay
again?
premium.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and you will have to pay premium, but you know, if you don't need it, don't. But I'm agreeing with Marty. I mean, I want to try and set up that 1-2 pass things too, because it's a really good idea.
Yeah, my wife used to read it early, and she is very, very typo and punctuation sensitive. So she's like the last one to read it now.
Mm-hmm.
I actually call her a proofreader, which is another type of reader in my work cycle.
Yeah.
Hey, what about you?
About which question?
You have a process for beta reads?
Process or beta reads? So yeah, I think I approach it at the same time you do when I feel like I'm pretty near ready, when I've run out of my own juice of what I think it needs to fix it. Sometimes I'll go into it thinking that it is actually ready for publication, and other times I'll go into it knowing something's a little bit off, but I just don't have, maybe I'm just too close to it, maybe I've just done it too many times. I know that it's something I'm not capable of doing just from my perspective. So that's when I will approach contacting beta readers. I know you're going to mention this later, but I use a questionnaire so that I won't talk too much on it because I know you want to talk about that too, but just so that I can make sure that I'm getting the feedback that I really need. And I agree with Marty, not just typos and all. That stuff I will do after the beta reads. I don't typically do the 2-pass that Marty was talking about. Number one, I think that's a great idea, but if it's not in your budget to do 2 passes with an editor, you might not be able to do that. So yeah, I'll do beta read, and then I'll do a proofread, and then I'll do one last read of just myself, and then it's ready for publication. So yeah, it goes through a lot of eyes.
Yeah, and since you brought it up, questionnaire.
Yeah, go for it. Let's talk about it.
I like to take a beta read, and I like to focus my read a little bit. So I want to know things about my story. And if it's a story of any complexity or length, there's probably some things that you're curious about. Does this particular character work well? Does this particular plot twist work? Is it are there enough breadcrumbs to sell the solution to the mystery? Things of that nature. So I will start them off with a questionnaire broken up into some different sections, and it could be 20 or 30 questions. And some of them are again, did the plot twist make sense to you? It could be things like what took you out of the story, or what happened in the story that made you go, yes, great, excellent, I really like that. But I also ask other questions like, other than the main character, who was your favorite character in the story? Because I may find things like there's a secondary character that everybody loves. Maybe I should write some short stories or novelettes about that character to, help sell my novel. Or maybe that character actually deserves a novel of their own. I wouldn't know unless I ask those questions. And I find that focuses people, because otherwise they're going to say, yeah, I basically liked your story, which isn't that informative to me. What I want is, I liked your story, but I hated that character. Or mostly I liked your story, but the mystery didn't really work for me. Or I didn't believe in the romance. Those are things that are actionable. And if enough people feel that way, I can take that and I can do things to fix the story, to tune it up for publication.
Yeah, I think the core axis for feedback is retain, increase, decrease. And when you use a questionnaire, you can get that kind of data a lot more easily. I think it does a very good job of focusing. And sometimes I'll also have very specific questions that are not just retain, increase, decrease. Questions like, you know, I'm not sure about the title. Do you have suggestions for a better title? Or I'm not sure about this character's whatever. So being specific like that allows me to hone in on stuff that's really popping out at me, that's outstanding, and then also to get a general pulse of the manuscript to see how it's doing in the staples of writing, like characterization, plot, etc.
I'll also, the most devastating criticism I got during one of my beta
Oh,
reads
I know what it is.
was
It better be the one I'm thinking of.
had a character that's setting a fire
Yes, that one.
using cooking oil. And one of my beta readers says, you know, hey, nice idea, but the cooking oil doesn't burn. Or more importantly, cooking oil may burn if it gets hot enough, but it is not a fire starter like gasoline.
Right. Right.
Now, the good thing, though, is that you're a fantasy writer, David, so you can create your own kind of oil that they use to cook and that burns.
I totally changed the ending of the story, and I used that fact. If my character didn't know that, my character didn't know that.
Yeah.
So she failed to set it with cooking oil, so then she had to stay in the building longer in order to set the fire for real, and then a fight ensued when she got caught.
Right.
There you go.
Added tension. Perfect. I remember, you know, I had one of my stories where it's like, it's not so much a beta read, because this is more of an alpha read, because, you know, when we defined alpha read, we said the full thing, but short stories, maybe if you're putting a short story through a writing group, that is like an alpha read. And so an alpha read of this story that we published in let me think, well, it was called The Twin Dilemma. I can't remember, one of our anthologies. We'll put a link to it in the description there. I had the story and it had this ending. It was kind of wishy-washy. And one of my readers said, nah, this ending, you know, that he needs to do something. He needs to make more decisions. He needs to not have it so easy. He needs to get more challenge. And then I deleted like the last third of the book, of the story, and just rewrote it where he goes in a totally different direction, more standoffish, more brutal. And I think it made it so much better. Sometimes, you know, someone gives you that suggestion and it's like, boom, take it and roll with it. Yeah,
in addition to a questionnaire that the beta readers fill out at the end, I also it's typically just like a page of saying, okay, read this before you read the book. And I'll specifically ask them, in the beginning of the book, were you sufficiently hooked early? How did you like the first sentence? How did you feel about the climax? You know, questions like that, so that they have those questions in their mind before they finish. Particularly if I am concerned about it. It's interesting when you get similar feedback from several beta readers. And usually if everybody independently says the same thing, you really should listen to them.
Oh,
I think the questionnaire is a great way to compare that too.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a yes or no on a questionnaire and they're all saying no or all saying yes, very easy to compare that data.
Although you want to be careful about your questionnaires. You don't want to make it too leading. You don't want to sort of make a question that will make everyone sort of look for that even harder than they might have wanted to.
Tell them not to questionnaire until afterwards, because I don't want to bias them.
Right.
I really don't want them to know too much about the story, except maybe what they might get from the blurb if they were buying it as a book.
Right.
Other than that, I don't want them to know any more than that when they read the story. I want them to reading it like a fresh reader story.
So that's an interesting point. So Marty, you prime them, and David, you ask them afterwards.
No,
I do both. Usually when I have found you get a better return if you don't give them the questionnaire until they send you their general feedback.
Ah, yeah.
Then email them the questionnaire, and they're more likely to fill it out.
That's a good plan.
See, I send them both at the same time, but I have these big warnings in heavy fonts. Don't read this until you've read the story.
Ah, yeah.
Now, another technique that works pretty well as well is when they're reading the story, you can also tell them to essentially mark any passage that took them out of the story, or any passage that really resonated well with them. So they don't have to comment. They just have to say, basically thumbs up for this, or hey, this took me out of the story, because those become interesting touch points that you might just be able to tune up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it doesn't require a lot of work on their part. All they have to do is mark it while they're reading.
Now, David, how many beta readers do you suggest for a typical round of beta?
You definitely have too many. I think like 3 to 8 is about the max.
Right.
Yeah.
I have found on my last book, I signed up like 30 beta readers.
Oh, wow.
Too many.
Yeah.
It's just too many. It's too much to have to read again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just too many. I usually sign up about 10 because I usually will get 2 or 3 that won't finish.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have a deadline. You give them a month or 6 weeks to do it and they don't finish it by then, I'll just request, okay, if you've got a partial, send me partial, feedback or whatever.
Right.
Most of the time, the people that don't do it just haven't even started it yet, so it's no skin off their nose.
Right.
But don't have too many.
Right.
And I also do 2 kinds. I also do, during the beta process, I actually start the proof process for doing the trade paperback version. So I can get the cover right, just do stuff like that. And I call those red pen proofs because some people like to beta read hard copy. And I actually give them a hard copy with a red pen and a deadline. And I write on the inside, please have this back to me by such and such a date. And, and they'll just like do margin comments all the way through the entire book, as well as email me a synopsis of their feedback at the end. That actually works pretty good because if you have figured out who is the quick reader and they bring it in, I like to like I have a reader that is a serious comma Nazi. It's kind of the only feedback that he does in the book is, red pen commas. I love taking that version and then handing it off to somebody else. So in the end, you've got one red pen version that's got margin notes from everybody because they can actually comment on other people's margin notes.
Yeah.
If I was more patient, I would do that and just hand that book off to 10 different people and have them all do margin notes. Yes. And that would be quite collectible in the end. It would be a fun thing to keep on yourself.
A lot of markup.
On the topic of having different varieties of readers, I also think it's good to have some beta readers that are writers and some beta readers that are not writers.
Oh,
that are
yeah.
Readers.
Yeah,
so that
absolutely.
they're reading it just as a reader.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fans.
I actually get some very insightful comments from people that are not authors, that are not a writer.
Mm-hmm. But read a lot.
But they read a lot. And I like diversity in it as well.
Yeah.
I like getting new beta readers, somebody that hasn't read anything else I've written.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it would simulate somebody that has, hey, I'm going to buy this book. It sounds interesting. And they may have never read anything else I had written. And that's important to me because there's a lot of reuse of world building in my novels, and I want the novels to be able to stand on their own feet
Right.
without having to be referential.
Smart.
I also find that there are things that you can do to basically integrate all of the beta read information that you've gotten. I think Marty has mentioned one with the traveling red pen version.
Mm-hmm.
I actually tend to print out a full copy, double spaced, of my story, and then I'll go through all the betas and all of the comments that I like, or that I agree with, or that I find merit in some way. I will actually copy them into my master copy.
Ah.
That master copy with all of the changes that everybody has suggested becomes my Bible for basically revising the story, and you know, accepting or rejecting or synthesizing some of the comments that I've gotten and making changes. Your mileage may vary, but I find that to be very useful for me to figure out how to integrate everything.
Yeah, I've done it a couple different ways, and I like your idea here, Dave, because sometimes I start rolling in modifications based on the early returns from beta readers. And then by the time the last beta reader provides their feedback, the story may have dramatically changed in some ways. So got to be careful with that.
What do you guys think about tiering your beta reads so that you have like 2 people that read the first beta read and then you make changes and then another 2 people read the next? No, you don't like that?
It just takes too long. It already takes me about, my beta cycle is about 6 weeks, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And while beta readers are reading it, I'm already working on my next novel.
Right.
So it's, you know, I don't want to add another 6 months to the process, which it would for me if I serialize the beta readers.
I don't start making changes until I get all my beta reads back that I think I want to get back. But even there, I don't want to stretch it out any further.
Right.
In fact, while I'm waiting for the beta reads, I can be working on other stuff, and it starts to give me some distance from the story, so I can start, getting some distance from the story, so that I can see how to make changes more effectively based on the comments.
Right.
So 6 weeks of distance is a good thing.
And now I think we should point out one other thing about beta reads. We're not doing these things in tools like Scrivener. This is all Word. Word has good tools to let you give it and then have markups turned on so that anyone can just edit the document and you can see where they did it. It makes it a lot easier for the beta readers.
It's interesting. I actually do a lot of beta reading for other authors, and I have a pretty formal way that I actually do the beta reads. I usually read the story straight through, but keep a notebook as I'm reading it, and I'll note the page that the comment is from, maybe a quote from a line that I'm commenting on. But I end up, the last beta read I did, I had like 18 pages of notes by the time I was done reading the book. And I use those notes when I write up my comments in an email. But then I'll take and scan the pages as well, the line notes, and I will email those to the author as well, and let them be highly amused at.
Are you referring to the read you did for me? That sounds very similar.
Oh, it's exactly like the beta read I did for you. That's how I do beta reads for everybody.
There you go.
Out of curiosity, a bullet journal?
No.
No? Okay. Curious.
I presume that's some formal methodology. No.
No.
I just go through and make notes as I go. And it's usually snarky notes. You know, there's a lot of cursing and complaining and you know, doing my best to make the author hate me because I'm mocking them mercilessly.
Right,
And,
right. Body count too low.
yeah,
I don't know, Mark.
but it's interesting to actually be on the opposite end of the coin.
Oh yeah.
And the reason that I beta read for people is it's like an exchange. I beta read for some people and they beta read mine for me when I need some help. So
Right.
I actually beta read for folks quite a bit.
Now, Marty, if you get a beta read and it is just teeming with problems, just like in the first 100 pages, let's say, but it's like a 300-page, 400-page book, do you actually finish all the way through?
I have on occasion stopped
Yeah.
and had a very frank, difficult, conversation with the author.
Yeah.
To say, look, pal, this is not even close
Yeah.
to be ready for prime time. And I won't go into it or name names or anything, but there is, some crappy, you really don't want them to embarrass themselves.
Yeah.
And if you have to have the hard talk, have the hard talk.
Yeah, the hard talk.
Don't dance around it. Let them know the book's not working.
I can't wait to, beta read Jeffrey's book.
Oh, I know.
And tell him how bad it
throw the
sucks.
darn thing in the trash and try again. And I'll accept that. I don't want to publish something that's crap, and if Marty doesn't like it, I will take that to heart.
I'm actually planning on doing a fake beta read for him first. To actually,
This is crap. Throw it
and
away.
at the end, it just says, just kidding.
Right. But I mean, this is an interesting topic.
It's about whether the story is working or not.
Yeah, which is
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I've actually beta read for some authors who don't take advice and don't get enough beta readers. And even if they did get other beta readers, they don't take their advice and publish anyways a horribly broken story.
Yeah.
And then, 6 months later, they'll wonder, why have I only sold 4 copies?
Exactly.
And it's really unfortunate, but you try to use it as a learning experience, whether you're getting beta read for or you're beta reading someone else.
You bring up an interesting topic, because if you do a beta read, you give the author lots of good advice. The author is very thankful to you, but doesn't even listen to your advice and puts you in the acknowledgments. Should you complain? Should you be bothered by that?
It depends on how big a piece of shit the book ends up being. It'd be if that was the case, I would when I replied with my feedback said, "Oh, and please don't mention me in the acknowledgement."
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Have you done that?
I have not done that.
Okay.
Self-correcting
That
problem.
seems a bit harsh. That has to be a very good reason to do
Alan
that.
Smithy Alan Smithy review.
But I think that a somewhat related point to help you be encouraged to take feedback is to make sure that you're asking the right betas, the ones that you respect. So if you're just asking a beta reader that, perhaps is just in your group, you barely know them, or maybe even you know them and you haven't really been a fan of some of their comments to other readers and you don't agree, don't ask that person just because they're willing, because you probably will be hesitant to take their advice anyway. Like I've had that happen just a couple of times where I'll get feedback that maybe I even asked for. But then when I get it and I disagree with it, I think, I don't really think this person is that, fantastic of a analyst anyway. That's doing them a disservice. It's doing you a disservice. It's just not the way to go.
I mean, that's why Marty is going to be such a good beta reader for me, because he's the type of person that I want to like my book. If
There
he
you go.
doesn't like it, it's not working.
There's sort of a, if you're asking somebody to be a beta reader, you're asking them because you value their opinion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why ask them?
Right.
So,
Right.
you're wasting their time.
Mhm.
Now, if I do a beta read and I give good advice and it's not taken at all, or even considered seriously, it's a self-correcting problem because I just won't do a beta read for that person again.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, that doesn't mean they have to slavishly listen to everything that I say. Maybe my sensibilities are different than the type of story that they're trying to write. But on the other hand, if I tell you you have a structural flaw, you probably do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there's-
it's about finding beta readers you trust.
Yep.
oh,
And it's also really important that they're honest with you. If they
mhm.
really think that there's a structural problem, they really think there's a plot hole, or they really disagree with the actions of some character,
Mhm.
if you have a good trust relationship with your beta reader, it's very helpful feedback.
Yeah, generally speaking, your spouse, your mom, not generally good beta readers. They'll usually just gloss over your problems. You want someone who's going to be brutally honest with you. Mind you,
Now, that's not entirely true, Jeffrey, because my wife is the most brutal.
Well, yeah, and well,
all
that's
of
why
my
I put the little
readers.
asterisks on the end. Yes,
It's,
some spouses will be honest with you.
You know, she's like held me down with her knee and made me change some of my books because she didn't
Right.
like certain chapters.
Right.
Also, why you have a questionnaire to help focus people, because
Hmm.
I know people are going to go, yeah, I like the story, right?
Yeah, that's the best case for the questionnaire. I mean,
I like this part, but not that part, or I like
Right.
that, but I didn't like this one. Yeah.
What did you think was really funny? What did you think was really thrilling? You know. Now, I think one other topic we should talk about, we did talk about, the quid pro quo process of I read for you, you read for me. But one other incentive that you can give to your beta readers is the acknowledgement, which we kind of talked about before. It's one of the nicest things that you can do and do very easily. Certainly, I'm planning to, all my beta readers will get thanks. In fact, I'm planning to order them in terms of, you gave me the best, so you get first, and you give me the second best, so you get second.
No. Yeah,
Don't tell them that.
No, I'm not, although I just did.
I have done my acknowledgments in alphabetical order for just that reason.
Right.
I thank everybody who helped me in any large or small way, but I'm not going to differentiate between you.
Yeah. And let's be honest, it was just so that Marty wouldn't have to be last.
You do reverse alphabetical.
I don't care.
There you go. There you go.
It's interesting though. I always buy every book I ever beta read,
Mm.
and then I read it again.
Mm-hmm.
But then I just read it to enjoy it, and the ways that I enjoy it might be different if I had already read it as a beta reader. In some cases, feedback was taken to heart. The story's better, and I really like the new story.
Right.
Sometimes I'll just shake my head and be amused at,
How that
the
person-
advice taken and not taken.
Yeah.
So it's fun to be a beta reader.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
And you are making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Try and find the time and do some beta reads.
So I think the bottom line is that the whole purpose of a beta read is to basically test your story, see if it's ready for prime time, and get feedback from real readers to see what you can do to tune it up if it needs tuning.
Mm-hmm.
So the big takeaway from this for me is go into a beta read with that mindset, and do everything you can to focus your process so that you get the best results and turn in the best story.
And keep an open mind and keep a
Mhm.
thick skin,
Mm-hmm.
because, none of it's personal. And if it is personal, you've picked the wrong beta reader.
Absolutely. Yeah. Constructive criticism. Take it to heart. Consider it. It's with your right to reject it. But as Marty pointed out, if everyone's saying it, you should probably change it.
Since we're doing closing statements, kind of feels like my closing statement will be, if you do a beta read, whether or not your book is fantastic or still has issues when it's published, you've gained my respect more so than if you didn't, because it tells me that you cared, and that you did your work. So no matter how it turns out, I respect you more. So keep that in mind too.
Very good. Well,
And with that, I think we've covered what there is to cover with beta reads.
another finely structured episode, my friends.
Good job. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week.